Have you ever looked around and felt like you just don't belong? Like you're watching the world from the outside, as if everyone else got a script you somehow missed. It's not just loneliness, it's something deeper, something harder to name. You walk through life with a sense that things aren't quite right, that conversations feel hollow, that the roles people play don't make sense to you. You wonder, is it me, or is the world asleep? And quietly, you carry a question you can't shake. Why do I feel like an outsider? Carl Jung had an answer. Not a simple one, not a comforting one, but a deep one. He believed that this feeling, the sense of being out of place, of seeing what others refuse to see, of being too aware, too sensitive, too different, was often a sign that you were being called, not to fit in, but to individuate, to become who you truly are, beneath the masks, beneath the fear, beneath the world's expectations. This is the journey Jung called individuation, and it begins with feeling like a stranger in your own life. So tonight we'll walk slowly through this path. We'll explore what it means to feel like an outsider, why the soul resists conformity, and how Jung's ideas might help you finally understand why you are the way you are. You don't need to take notes. You don't need to understand everything. Just rest. Breathe. Let the words drift in like a dream. And if you fall asleep along the way, that's okay. Some truths reach us more clearly when the world is quiet. You were born into a world already in motion. Families, beliefs, norms, roles. And very early on, you learned what was expected of you. Smile. Be polite. Don't cry too much. Don't talk back. Don't stand out. Don't be too loud or too quiet. Little by little, you began to wear a mask. Jung called this the persona, the social face you present to the world. It's not fake. It's not evil. It's just incomplete. The persona is useful. It helps you navigate society, hold a job, maintain relationships. But problems begin when you confuse the persona with the self, when you start to believe that your role is your identity, that your job title, your personality type, your social image is the totality of who you are. But deep down, a part of you knows better. You can feel it, can't you? That quiet ache beneath the smile, that sense that you're performing, that nagging feeling that you're not being true to yourself, even if you can't yet say who that self really is. That's the beginning of the outsider's path. Not rebellion, not arrogance, just an inner whisper. This isn't all I am. And once you hear that whisper, you can't unhear it. Every child has two faces, the one they're praised for and the one they're punished for. We learn quickly what earns love, what draws approval, what makes the room feel safe, and just as quickly, we learn what must be hidden: the anger, the fear, the wildness, the sensitivity, the curiosity that asks too many questions, the sadness that lingers too long. All of it is pushed out of sight, out of view, out of the light. This is how the shadow is born. Jung believed that every person carries a shadow, the parts of the self that were rejected, denied, or never allowed to live. But here's the thing. The shadow doesn't disappear. It doesn't die. It waits. It watches. And often it is this shadow, the buried self, that makes us feel like outsiders. You see, when you hide a part of yourself, you also start to see the world through a distorted lens. You sense things others don't. You notice insincerity. You feel discomfort in places others feel at home. Because your unconscious knows this isn't real. You watch people smile through pain, chase things they don't even want, speak in scripts, live in masks, and something in you recoils. Not because you're better, but because you're more awake, because the shadow inside you is stirring, asking to be acknowledged. People often misunderstand the shadow. They think it's just rage, envy, cruelty. But Jung was clear. The shadow contains everything you pushed away. And that includes your light, your creativity, your intuition, your depth, your joy. Many people feel like outsiders because they've buried their own brilliance. They were told they were too much, too intense, too imaginative, too weird. So they shrank. But the soul doesn't forget what it was. It keeps sending signals, dreams, discontent, restlessness, moments of wonder that vanish too quickly. These are not flaws. They are flares. Your shadow is trying to guide you home. Think of something you loved as a child, something you were drawn to before the world told you who to be. A strange hobby, a way of moving, a type of art or story or fascination that felt like yours. Where did it go? What did you trade for acceptance? And more importantly, what would happen if you brought it back? Not to show anyone, not to prove anything, just to remember. Why outsiders see more. The ones who feel like outsiders are often those who've been exiled from their own truth. But there's a gift in that. When you don't belong to the world, you begin to see the world more clearly. You see the cost of conformity. You see the lies people tell themselves. You see the price of never asking hard questions. And you long for something more. That longing isn't weakness. It's the start of individuation. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. This is why the shadow matters. It holds the keys to your authenticity. And until you face it, you'll always feel slightly misplaced, slightly disconnected, slightly unreal. But once you turn toward it, gently, without judgment, the world begins to shift. Colors return, desire returns, energy returns. And that outsider feeling, it starts to fade. Not because you fit in, but because you've begun to fit yourself. What if you were never meant to fit in? What if that ache inside you wasn't something to fix, but something to follow? What if feeling like an outsider wasn't a problem, but a path? Carl Jung believed that at the center of every life there is a hidden self, a blueprint of who you truly are. Beyond your persona, beyond your shadow. This self isn't just your personality. It isn't your job, your name, your habits. It's the totality of all you could be. If you listened closely enough, it's the person you were born to become. Now here's the paradox. The self is both who you are and who you are becoming. It's not something you achieve, like a diploma or a title. It's something you uncover, layer by layer, wound by wound, dream by dream. And it reveals itself slowly, through crisis, through longing, through the subtle sense that you were meant for something more. You don't chase the self, you invite it. You create the conditions for it to emerge, by being honest, by being still, by being brave enough to turn inward when everything in the world tells you to look outward. There's a moment on the journey of individuation when something strange happens. You stop trying to fit in, and yet you begin to feel at home. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You stopped living for the crowd, stopped apologizing for your depth, stopped pretending that noise was truth. And in the silence that followed, you heard something you hadn't heard in a long time. Your own voice, your true voice. Quiet, wise, unmistakably yours. You may still feel like an outsider, but you're no longer lost. You're no longer exiled from yourself. And in that quiet reunion, you realize something that shifts everything. I was never meant to belong to them. I was meant to belong to me. Jung knew that most people would never make this journey. Why? Because it requires solitude, honesty, and a willingness to let the old self die, to shed the mask, to face the shadow, to walk alone. But for those who do, the reward is something society cannot offer. Wholeness, not perfection, not happiness on command, but wholeness. The integration of all you are, light and dark, strength and weakness, dream and reality. And with that wholeness comes something else. A peace that doesn't need validation. A sense of meaning that can't be shaken. A deep, quiet joy, the kind that hums beneath the noise. Here's something people miss. The self isn't selfish. As you become more fully yourself, you actually become more capable of love, more capable of truth, more capable of seeing others clearly, because you no longer project your own wounds onto them. And that is the quiet power of the outsider, who finds their way back home. You stop trying to change the world and start being what the world so desperately needs. A whole human being. Have you ever thought about someone, only to hear from them moments later, or felt an eerie sense that something was meant to happen just the way it did? A strange coincidence, a symbol that seemed to speak directly to you, a song that played at just the right moment, a dream that mirrored reality. Most people brush these moments off. It's just random, they say, just a fluke. But Carl Jung saw them differently. He believed that these meaningful coincidences, events that felt orchestrated by something deeper, were not accidents. He called them synchronicities, and he believed they were how the unconscious communicates with the conscious mind, a kind of inner guidance, a hidden thread of meaning, woven just beneath the surface of our lives. When you feel like an outsider, life can feel chaotic, disconnected, like nothing fits. But synchronicity suggests otherwise. It suggests that even in your loneliness, you are still part of something greater. That your journey is not random. That the symbols, stories, people, and places in your life carry messages, if you're quiet enough to listen. Have you noticed that the right book seems to find you when you need it most? That you overhear a conversation that speaks directly to your struggle? That you wake from a dream feeling like something or someone was trying to tell you something? These are not delusions. Jung believed they are part of the psyche's intelligence, a kind of spiritual physics, where the inner world and the outer world mirror each other. Synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see. Carl Jung. To understand synchronicity, you have to understand that for Jung the boundary between dream and waking life was much thinner than we think. The symbols that appear in your dreams are not just random images, they are the language of the soul. And sometimes those same symbols appear in your waking life: a bird, a name, a number, a face, a pattern. You notice it because it resonates, and the resonance is what matters. It's your psyche nudging you, saying this is important, look closer, wake up. Jung believed that the more you commit to the journey of individuation, the more these signs begin to appear. Not as proof, not as rewards, but as guides, markers that you are on the right path, that the self is speaking, that life itself is participating in your unfolding. And here's the strange part: the more you align with your true self, the less you seek control, and the more life begins to feel meaningful. The outsider becomes the wanderer becomes the mystic becomes the witness to a deeper, more interconnected reality. You don't have to chase synchronicity. You don't have to make it happen. All you have to do is pay attention, be curious, stay open. Ask yourself, what keeps showing up in my life? What am I being invited to notice? What is life trying to tell me beneath the noise? Synchronicity won't give you all the answers, but it can help you ask better questions. And slowly, those questions shape you. There's a moment in every great story where the main character leaves home. Not just their house, but everything familiar. The rules, the people who told them who they were. They step out into the unknown, and for a while they are utterly alone. This is the journey of the wanderer, and it mirrors the journey of individuation. You may have wondered, why did I feel so different? Why couldn't I just be like everyone else? But maybe that feeling wasn't a curse. Maybe it was a calling, a quiet invitation to walk a different path. Because in Jung's view, there comes a time in every psyche's evolution when it must break away from the collective, not to rebel, not to be dramatic, but to become real. You cannot become yourself while trying to be someone else. And so the soul leads you away from the noise, from the mirrors, from the scripts you didn't write, and you walk alone, uncertain, but strangely alive. It's tempting to see this outsider phase as a mistake, as something you need to fix or escape. But Jung saw it differently. He believed that being cast out or walking away is often the first step toward wholeness, because once you're outside the system, you can finally see it clearly. You see the masks people wear, the roles they play, the truths they silence. And then you start to see yourself, not as a product of your environment, but as a being with depth, history, instinct, imagination. The wanderer is not lost. The wanderer is becoming. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. Carl Jung. There are seasons to this path. First there is grief. Leaving the known is painful. You miss the comfort. You miss the belonging, even if it was never real. Then there is doubt. Who am I now? What do I believe? What matters? These questions are disorienting but necessary. And finally, there is clarity. A new center begins to emerge, not based on approval, not shaped by fear, but rooted in something ancient and utterly yours. You begin to trust your own instincts. Speak your truth more gently. See life as a path, not a performance. And suddenly, the outsider becomes a seeker. The seeker becomes a guide. The guide becomes someone others look to when they begin to question. The wanderer's journey doesn't end in isolation. Eventually there is a return, but it's not a return to the old self or the old world. It's a return with gifts, wisdom, compassion, depth, perspective, and often a quiet presence that makes others feel safe enough to begin their own journey. This is how individuation ripples outward, not by changing others, but by becoming so whole that your very presence becomes a mirror. So if you feel like you're in between worlds, not who you were but not yet who you'll become, trust that this is sacred space. It's the cocoon, the in-between, the passage where everything softens, so something new can take shape. You're not broken, you're becoming. You're not behind. You're just off the map, exactly where transformation begins. You've done the hard part. You've stepped away from the noise. You've faced your own shadow. You've wandered through the wilderness of the soul. And slowly, you've begun to remember who you are. But now comes something even harder. Returning to a world that hasn't changed. Returning as someone new. There's something people don't often say out loud. A person who is whole is unsettling, not because they mean harm, but because they reveal what others are avoiding. You've probably felt this before. You walk into a room and without saying a word you can feel the discomfort. You're not pretending. You're not performing. You're simply present. But presence, true grounded, conscious presence, is rare. And in a world addicted to distraction, that rarity can feel like a threat. Most people wear masks they've forgotten. Are masks. They play roles so well they believe it's who they are. And when you come along, no longer wearing your own mask, no longer playing by unspoken rules, it upsets the balance. Not intentionally, not aggressively, but just by being real. Realness is like a mirror. And mirrors make people uncomfortable when they haven't looked into one for a long time. You'll notice the signs. People who once felt close start to drift. Small talk becomes harder. Surface level friendships fade. You might even be told you've changed. And they're right. You have. But the change wasn't sudden. It wasn't selfish. It was sacred. And it came with a price. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. There's an ache that often follows awakening. The ache of distance. You may long to be understood, to share what you've discovered, to bring others with you. But Jung warned that individuation is rarely a path walked in groups. It's lonely, at times isolating, but necessary. Because until you are whole, you cannot truly connect. You can only perform connection, bend and twist to be accepted. But true connect, It only happens between whole people. Anything less is just a negotiation of masks. And yet in that strangeness you find your power. You stop needing everyone to agree. You stop arguing. You stop seeking. And in that silence, you become rooted, like a tree whose roots run deep underground, invisible, but unshakable. You're no longer chasing belonging. You are belonging to yourself, to the moment, to life itself. One of the final tests of the individuated person is this: can you stay whole in the presence of those who are still fragmented? Can you resist the urge to shrink, to edit yourself, to go back to sleep just so you won't stand out? This doesn't mean preaching, or proving, or pushing your truth onto others. It means being calmly, fully, without apology, and trusting that your wholeness, even if it disturbs, might one day inspire. Eventually some people will return, drawn not to your persona, but to your depth. They may not have words for it, but they'll feel it. A quiet safety, a deep peace, a presence that doesn't ask for anything but honesty. You won't need the crowd. You won't fear being misunderstood, because you'll know you didn't lose them. You found yourself, and in finding yourself, you gave others silent permission to begin their own search.